review on Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Yes, I got it right that time. Now, this movie is directed by Gareth Edwards, the man who brought us Monsters from 2010, which got him the job of Godzilla 2014. Believe me, that's a whole episode on its own. And that movie got him this job. And then after this, he's directing independent movies, independent movies. Because this movie made him basically not do big properties anymore. Probably once in a while. But I'm not going to spoil the story here, but I'm giving my own thoughts about this movie. Now, I'm going to say this before spoilers and stuff like that. Is this a good movie? Well, yes and a no. It's an alright movie, but this movie will probably not get an average Joe to go see it. I actually will say that if you've seen episode 4 before you saw this, you know what's going to happen. So, really no spoilers. I don't know why. But let's get on here. Now, spoilers ahead. Now, this movie just starts off with no scroll, whatever, Star Wars, gone. Boom, nothing. Starts off with Rogue One. Well, after the few first minutes or something like that. And this movie is kind of funny that, we're gonna follow the events after Revenge of the Sith that leads up to Episode 4, A New Hope. And I was saying this kind of will discourage people from caring about this movie. I kind of think it kind of discouraged me from seeing the movie. Because I love Star Wars. I remember as a kid my dad showed me the original Star Wars trilogy in the original way. Before I found out they mastered it and screwed it up and everything like that, added scenes that didn't need to be there. Unless if they were very important. This movie kind of feels like that one story that didn't need to be made. It needed to be made in a book or comic book. I don't care, video game, toys. Heck, I won't even mind reading it off a t-shirt. But when they brought the Death Star, it feels like what they were trying to do back in 1977. It feels like that they did it here right. Like, one shot of the beam from the original just explodes the planet entirely. This one, on the other hand, it shoots out a planet, causes a giant shockwave, and explosions after it. And, well, I don't know what else to say about this movie. It's just that this movie had its own ways and didn't feel like a real movie. Because this is labeled Star Wars. Problem with Star Wars that Disney owns is that they're going to make it Star Wars. We're never going to see, prequel stories. I'm talking about, episode 1 to 3. Then no prequels for those, or stories, or sequels, whatever you want to say, for those movies. Because they expand upon it with TVs, books, cartoons, toys, and everything else. This is just okay, well, we're just gonna release this as the way it is. So, people that love Star Wars won't be shied away. Well, I feel like it kind of shied away from me. Not one of the best Star Wars, but kind of boring. Yeah, I said that this is boring. Now, if you see that robot up there, it's the only character that you're going to end up loving. That's really it. The other characters are just there. They're just added in. That's my problem with the Gareth Edwards movies. He can't draw out the human drama. Now, the best thing is that he learned from, okay, after Godzilla 2014, I should not literally tease people about these things that keep happening in the movie, Because, if you see Godzilla 2014, you'll notice that he's not barely in it. He's not really barely in it. Godzilla doesn't do nothing. Mino's doing stuff, but this, he doesn't. Now, Rogue One here is like, he fixed the problem, but he kind of made it a little bit more. Like, the human drama is now boring. The human element is just boring. The space battles, oh man, that's those space battles. But my problem is, some of these ships that you see in this movie, that's it. This is gonna probably be the only time you'll see them. I don't find that entertaining. I find it kind of like we were too lazy to have this in the movie, or we were too stupid to put these in the movie, and these are newer ships. I don't find that a good idea to have, because, like, these feel like episode 7 plans that were happening, and they screwed up, and they're like, oh crap, well, we didn't get to use these plans, so why don't we use them for Rogue One? I'm okay if they use these in episode 8. Now, some of these characters that are in this movie are CG. Oh, man. Gareth, man, I love you. You look like a nice person, but this isn't a movie needing to be CG. I mean, like, the robot sometimes feels like it's literally there. Some of the puppeteers look cool, but Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia, it was CG. She wasn't really there. They had a different actress, and they just CG over her face, or Photoshop, whatever you want to say, over her, to have Princess Leia. I think that's kind of disrespectful. And then, like, oh man, what's that old guy's name? He was in episode 4 as Darth Vader's, like, second in command, basically. In this movie, you kind of get more of him. I actually like them. And I was hoping that, let's get a solo movie of him. Or Grievous, from episode 3, you know? Other than that, this movie is boring. It has elements that make you like, yeah, this is the best Star Wars. And then elements of like, man, this is terrible. I'll tell you this, when Darth Vader is here, it's fan service. I think they treated a villain here not well made. I felt like that they had to put him in so to remind people this is Star Wars. This is the first Star Wars movie where there's no really Jedis. They keep saying, may the Force be with you, and, like, the Force is with me, or something like that. I actually think that they reuse that a lot so then they can tie it in. And this movie, at the end of it, literally ties in with episode 4. Like, literally, like, it felt rushed. Even my dad agreed with me. He didn't care for it. And for someone who literally grew up with Star Wars, that was my dad, who was there since the beginning, it's kind of shocking that even it came from his mouth, saying that it felt rushed and it shouldn't have been there. It's like, you try to put on fan service for no apparent reason. It's like, you want to make your movie tie in with other stuff, but this is not a good way how to tie in something. For me, I feel like that you tied in Star Wars here with something else. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it was an okay movie, not the best, not the worst, but I think it kind of built up too high for itself. And I think since Gareth Edwards is behind this project, you should always suspect a little bit less of him. I can see his full potential kicking in, but it kind of sucked that it took a second big movie and he still hasn't hit that potential. Because if you watch Godzilla, it's terrible. It's garbage. He's not barely in it. And this is coming from someone who loves Godzilla, who grew up with Godzilla. And seeing it where what he did there was his playground. That kind of sucks, because, like, what happens when you do that to a franchise? It's burned. This is, like, not a very good movie. I find it boring. Now, the soundtrack. Of course, the soundtrack is amazing. I literally bought the soundtrack before I saw the movie. And I will say, it feels like a kaiju soundtrack. Now, this is the first one, if you're not counting the Clone Wars movie. This is the first one John Williams has not done. Holy crap. I mean, that blew my mind when I found out he wasn't doing it. I was like, oh wow. Jeez. He's probably working on episode 8 right now. But let's get back to what I think is going to be wrong with the Star Wars series. Now, it's already 2 movies in, and it's already burned out. Because you can't expand onto, like, oh, you gotta always have stormtroopers, you gotta have Darth Vader, you gotta always have Obi-Wan Kenobi, you always have to have TIE fighters, you gotta have X-Wings, you always gotta have, like, AT Walker things. You always gotta have the Death Star, you always gotta have the Death Star ships there. You always gotta have R2 and C-3PO. I find that kind of moronic and idiotic, if moronic is even a word. But it's like, let's go back to a year earlier with The Force Awakens. Now, my problem with that is that I even said this to myself. I could have watched A New Hope, the special edition, and it will still be the same movie. I don't want to see something that feels like the same or trying to tie in something. I'm going to pull Shin Godzilla here for a random reason. And I think that Shin Godzilla literally did it right. Because, like, Force Awakens, like, let's play it safe, okay? So then we don't scare anyone away. But Shin Godzilla's like, oh, let me show you how to do it right. He comes in with an AK. Now a little lightsaber, you think it's gonna stop him. And they changed the character. Now, granted, Godzilla has been around longer than Star Wars. And when they were playing it safe, they were just showing like, oh, you remember back in 54? Let's show you the new Godzilla, how big he is, against the buildings that were from 1954. This movie, on the other hand, it played it safe with the original elements, but it tried to make a new plot, new story. At least it did something right for that. But I just don't think this is the right Star Wars movie for a person getting into it. I think you're better off watching A New Hope or The Force Awakens. Now, after seeing this, I'm scared of seeing what's gonna come after it. Like, we're gonna get Han Solo movie, and Obi-Wan Kenobi solo movie. We got episode 8 coming out this year, and then episode 9 in 2 years from now. I don't think this should have been a movie release of this year or last year, because I just got around it today. I think it should have been a movie released a couple years from now, after episode 9. Well, that's my review. Stay tuned for more reviews on ZillaFan98.